Oiseaux font la brume avec lenteur. Sur le banc du passager, deux larges adresses. Le ciel de novembre est en pleurs. Dehors, on voit pas les adresses. Le gars à la radio le dit.
So this is Karl Tremblay and Les Cowboys Fringants and the sad news today. And this is a big story across French Quebec, certainly. The fact that he has died. He died of prostate cancer. He was only 47 years old.
47 years old.
Front page, Journal de Montréal. The premier has already announced to let his family know this will be a national funeral in Quebec. So we wanted Toula Drimonis to come on and talk about this. Toula, thanks for being here. I read your tweet. For a lot of people in the English community, they may not really have any idea, first of all, of Les Cowboys Fringants or of Karl Tremblay. But you're someone who sort of is in both communities here. And I'd like to read what you wrote. You wrote, I just came home and heard the sad news. If someone ever asked me what Quebec sounds like, I'd play them. Les Cowboys Fringants, singing Pizza Galaxie and Les Étoiles Filantes. So we just played a little bit of one of the songs. Tell us, with respect to just what an impact, how big an impact this is to lose Karl Tremblay.
Listen, and thank you for having me. I won't pretend that I know the entire discography of the Cowboys Fringants, that I am someone who is immersed in Quebec culture, who appreciates, the literature, the music, the plays, and I knew enough about them, and there were certain songs that definitely I would recognize anywhere. And I was touched as so many other Quebecers were. Yesterday I was grabbing a drink with a friend, so I was offline, which is rare for me. I'm usually on social media, and I came home and I looked at my phone and I saw that he had passed away. And I'm not going to lie, I started crying because it moved me immensely. And I knew he was ill. It wasn't a surprise, as it wasn't a surprise to most Quebecers. We had seen him perform this summer. When he was in Quebec, they had performed at the Festival d'été du Québec in front of like thousands and thousands, and many knew that it could potentially be, one of his last performances. And I was moved because I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant to Quebec. I know how deeply French Quebecers really love this band and Karl Tremblay and what he symbolizes really and what he represents to so many.
I was trying to explain to a few people around here, and like you, Toula, like I have a foot in each culture, but I wasn't, it's not like I really knew. I knew Karl Tremblay, I'd seen them perform before, but like you knew the songs by sound, not necessarily on, that I'm listening to regularly. But I was trying to kind of compare them to, I was saying this is kind of like Gordon Downey Jr. when he passed away. The Tragically Hip played that role in the rest of Canada. Les Cowboys Fringants are kind of like that to Quebec. And the fact that he's gone too soon, gone so young, the Quebec community is hugely impacted here.
Very much so, and I agree with you. I also felt that there were a lot of similarities in the sense that they're both gone too early, and what an impact they both had. And it's funny because here in Quebec we often engage in, and it's happened again with this death as well, where we engage in these identity politics, where sometimes people will say, "Oh, you're not talking about this," or "You don't seem to be responding or reacting to this, so you're not a real Quebecer, you're not a real Canadian," and a lot of people will say, well, English Canada doesn't know anything about Les Cowboys Fringants, which is to a certain degree true. But the same can be said about, the Tragically Hip.
Yes.
And I really would tell people to stop doing that, because it's not always a litmus test for who is a real Canadian or a real Quebecer, because when it comes to the arts, when it comes to music and literature, it's so subjective. I consider myself a Canadian and a Quebecer, but if I'm being honest, the Tragically Hip or Rush, for example, these are quintessentially Canadian bands, and they don't really do much for me.
No, me neither. I'm with you.
But
I respect them and know they're significant.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I understand how much they resonate with people, and they did resonate. Like for me, Les Cowboys Fringants, they're kind of what Beau Dommage were, or Plume La Traverse for like the people in the 60s and 70s. They anyone who is kind of in the 30s, 40s, 50s. They were impacted. It's kind of a soundtrack for them growing up in many ways, these tunes. And what I love about them and what I can wholly respect about this group is that, to me, when I said in my tweet, Aaron, that like they sound like Quebec to me, it's the topics that they chose to sing about.
Right.
You know, they're very authentic. They're very simple things. You're talking about salt of the earth people, you know, talking about everyday worries, everyday concerns. The joie that they used, you know, the words, you know, they would throw in English, they would throw expressions of like, you know, Attache la tuque was like their first CD, their first album. So for me, that's what I mean when I say they sound like Quebec. Yeah. They sound with the Quebec that I know and that I live in every day.
It's well said. Well said indeed, Toula. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on with us.
Thank you for having me.
Here is a little Les Cowboys Fringants. This is Les Étoiles Filantes. Here you go.
Si je m'arrête un instant pour te parler de ma vie, juste comme ça, tranquillement, dans un bar rue Saint-Denis, je te raconte